Hello, welcome back to the James Rambling Reviews for yet another episode. In today's episode, I'm actually going to be reviewing for you this Indian movie that I watched the other night, a couple nights back, called Devara. And so, before I get into how I felt about Devara, however you want to pronounce that, context wise here, with Indian movies, I've talked about quite a few Indian movies now. And the last one I talked about was called Swag. It was on Amazon Prime, but it was that time maybe where it didn't really work for me, and I'll link that down below. And so there's definitely that where I've actually grown to appreciate and kind of enjoy Indian movies the more I have, dived deeper into the genre as a whole. And then I had that example of Swag where it was just kind of not that interesting, and I have actually not really thought about it much after reviewing it and stuff like that. And so there's definitely that. And so with the Devara, I will go on ahead and kind of explain what this movie is about, but obviously I'm not going to spoil everything because this movie only came out on Netflix recently, and I'm pretty sure the theatrical release of this movie was in October of 2024. And as I'm recording this now, it is actually the 17th of November, so it's a pretty new movie, and I don't want to spoil everything. So, pretty much the biggest takeaway from this film is the fact that it is actually kind of like an Indian Aquaman, where you have this guy who's trying to serve the land and the sea, and how there's all these themes about how the Red Sea makes you be turned into this crazy, crazy person, and you will be punished for, disagreeing with Devara. If you don't think Devara is awesome, you're gonna get destroyed, and that is what I would take away from it, because if I go on ahead and explain the plot, because with a Bollywood movie, an Indian movie, whatever movie, however you want to describe it, the plot, it has a simple plot, straightforward plot. But then once you get deep and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the movie, you're like, okay, now the guy has a love interest, now he's got this and that, and everything is just going bit bonkers and chaotic and crazy. So how did I actually feel about Devara? So I'm gonna be honest into saying the fact that I absolutely loved Devara, and I think that this is absolutely the peak definition of, Indian Aquaman, except that it isn't like the Aquaman where he's down in the ocean swimming. There is a few scenes like that here and there, but most of the time he's on land, and sometimes there's even scenes where he's on a boat or he's on a ship or something like that, a cargo ship and stuff like that, but nothing like big, oceans and like the aquarium or, Atlantis like you would see in Aquaman. No, nothing like that at all. And so I actually really enjoyed this movie because it is super duper entertaining. It is actually really, really well paced. And I just really love how much I enjoyed the film. And because it's a Bollywood movie, an Indian movie, and stuff like that, like soundtrack wise, is it cool? Is it fun? I actually prefer this to the last movie we talked about in the Indian type of things, because the whole theme about like Devara, Devara, he is Hail the Tiger, Devara, Devara. That whole thing is kind of cool. And then they have this really, really epic song, that like this dance number where they choreograph it, and it's like really, really catchy, really, really funny, and I really, really got enjoyment out of that. And so there's that. And what I really do notice about Indian movies, when they use dance numbers and, big choreographed scenes where characters are dancing in a certain formula, dancing in a certain way, dancing in a certain rhythm, the movie just flies by. Because, to be honest with you, this might sound really strange, but I would actually equate, these dance numbers to a full on action set piece, because it's a chaotic kind of move set. There's things moving around. There's people making all these noises, and so you hear all of that. And there is only like one or two or three dance numbers in the entire movie, because this movie, it's a lot more story driven and there's a lot more characters. And then you have Devara and the twist about how Devara, what he was up to all along, and things like that. So you do have that, and then also when you consider an Indian movie based on the other ones I've watched, the budget doesn't need to be like £700 million and $700 million or whatever. Like it can just be kind of like, standard looking, low budget stuff. But this time around, you definitely feel like because this is a theatrical kind of experience that they did actually obviously put time and effort into the budget. But with an Indian movie, you're not expecting some like really, really pretty looking visuals. You're just getting some like standard, regular, generic looking stuff because you're actually there for the entertainment. You're not there to see some pretty visuals and pretty artistic, like an art housey mousy movie. You're not in it for that. And so all of that considered, really, I would give this movie like a solid 8 or a 9 out of 10 because it gave me that experience that I really indeed wanted. And so I would even go on to say that I recommend this more even more than the first two Aquaman movies. Like those, the Aquaman, it's just kind of like, well, Jason Momoa, he's fun there, and the second movie was kind of forgettable. And I didn't really see the first Aquaman that much. And yeah, I mean, that's not really even saying a lot here, but to say the least, I think Indian Aquaman is the one you want to watch. And on top of there's a factoid and a fact about this movie that I forgot to mention here, but just so you can let me cook a little bit here, the main actor NTR was in RRR, and honestly, man, I prefer this way more to RRR, and that's probably because RRR was like Raw Rise Revolt, whatever. That was my first ever Indian movie, and so going with this Devara experience, I definitely indeed enjoyed it more. And so, yeah, that is my coverage of Devara. Let me know what you thought about Devara in the comments because this movie was awesome and I absolutely I'm absolutely enjoying Indian movies. And so the fact that there was only like one Indian movie I didn't like or even RRR that I didn't really appreciate as much as other people did, the fact that the genre's getting more interesting, that's really good. So, yeah, I just had to yap on a bit so I could explain myself really well. Bye, 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 Devara, da 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 Devara.